Hey guys, welcome to the next flip video. We're going to talk about a couple of the things you need to keep in mind as you're writing your essay for this unit. All of this should be reviewed, so we're going to go through it pretty quick. So the first thing you need to keep in mind when you're writing a literary analysis is that it's formal writing. An essay is formal. You're not talking with your friends. You're not writing a text message or anything of that nature. It's formal. And so when it's formal, it means no contractions. We like to use them a lot. That's how we speak. It shouldn't be how we write our essay. So when you have a sentence like, "It's the yellow wallpaper that's making her feel like she's trapped," you need to fix all these contractions. You need to spell them out. It needs to be "it is." It needs to be "that is." So when you have your contractions, you need to spell them out. You also need to avoid the second person. You should never use the word "you" in a literary analysis. If you're going to address the reader, you need to make it general. You want to use third person. The reader knows she is feeling like this because the narrator says. So, no second person, no contractions. Another thing you want to keep in mind that we've had some problems with is ambiguity. The reader has to know what you're talking about at all times. The reader should never have a question about what you're talking about. So if you look at the first example here, the narrator tells her sister that she must get out of the room. We don't know who she is. Is it the sister that has to get out, or is it the narrator? It's unclear. It's ambiguous. So that would need to be addressed. The second example, Edwards also approaches his audience, reminding them how "this are all you that never passed under a great change of heart." It is saying that we don't know what it is. So you want to avoid ambiguity. It has to be clear at all times what you're talking about. If you're not sure if it's clear or not, it's not clear, and you need to fix it. Another example of vague versus clear. Vague. Last week I had 3 tests and a book report due. It was much better this week. Again, what's it? This is vague. This is what we want to avoid. What you want? Last week I had 3 tests and a book report due. My schedule was much better this week. Now it's very clear for the reader. You're talking about your schedule. So again, you want to remove the ambiguity. You want to be careful with your pronoun usage. Who is he? Who is she? What is it? The reader always needs to know what's going on, what you're talking about. Another thing with your essay that we noticed with some of the essays last semester, when you're referring to the author, the first time you refer to her, especially in this essay, you're going to be using her full name, Charlotte Perkins Gilman. After that, you get a choice. You can use her full name or her last name. The standard is to use just the last name, so it's Gilman Writes. What you never want, and what a lot of students do, and this is wrong, is you never use just the first name. Should never see just the first name. Okay? These are not your friends. You use first names when you're talking about your friends, not when you're talking about authors. So the first time, it's the full name. After that, last name. That's the way you should remember it. So this essay is a literary analysis, which means you're going to be using quotes from the story, which means you're going to need to cite them. There's 2 ways to cite a quote. You can use a signal phrase, or you cannot use a signal phrase. Whichever way you use, it has the same components. No matter which one you choose, you're going to have the author's name and you're going to have the page number. All that changes is where you put it. So if you use a signal phrase, all you're doing is you're telling the reader up front, here's where I'm getting this. So you use the author's last name, again, never their first name, and a strong verb, and you introduce the quote. So you've got Gilman highlights this notion when she writes, and then you give your quote. So you've got your last name, your strong verb, you've got your quote, and then your page number. When you use a signal phrase, that's what you do. Your page number goes inside parentheses, and the period goes after it. You never put in the number sign. We're not doing that. It's just the numeral. If you don't use a signal phrase, it's still the same components. You're still going to have the author's name. You're still going to give the page number. Only the location changes. So now, same quote, but instead of saying Gilman writes, we're saying the narrator states. We still have to give that author's name. So now it comes at the end. Still, again, just the numeral. Never this, never a number sign, never PG, none of that stuff. It's just the numeral and the author's name. And the period goes outside the parentheses. So when you're working with quotes, you want to remember you're only using the most important part of the quote. You want to avoid using quotes that go over 2 typed lines unless it's absolutely necessary. And trust us when we tell you it's rarely absolutely necessary. So we should not see quotes that are 4, 5, 6, 7 lines long. Sometimes you only need 2 words from a quote. So you want to make sure you're only using the most important part and you're avoiding going over 2 lines unless you absolutely have to. So in closing, Smokey the Bear, for those of you guys who remember this character, has a little message for you. Only you can prevent failing. We're going to help you out, but ultimately the responsibility lies with you. We look forward to reading your guys' essays. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask Miss Williams, Mr. Smith, or myself. Also, make sure you're looking at the blog. Make sure you're using those web links on the right-hand side to get some help.